I hope you're able to see me and to hear me. I'm speaking to you because obviously I'm held up in traffic as usual on a Friday, and therefore I apologize, but we're going to have to do this from my car, but it's the best that we can do under these circumstances. So I think I can speak for all of us that we woke up this morning to the shocking and horrendous news of the terrible tragedy that befell our people, our nation in Meron in Israel. For those of you that may not have heard or may not be aware of the full scale of the tragedy that we are all still coming to terms and hearing about and learning about, the details are still sketchy, but as of now, I am told that there were 44 people that have been tragically killed at the celebrations in Meron, and over 150 are injured, many of them seriously injured, and so therefore we still don't know the full scale of this tragedy. Certainly, in terms of Israel in the last 70 years, in terms of non-terrorist natural or catastrophes, this ranks as one of the worst. The details are sketchy, but as you're all aware, when it comes to Lag BaOmer today, it is expected, it is meant to be a day of tremendous celebration. Last night was meant to be the highlight, when after mourning for 32 days over the students of Rebbe Kiva that perished during this period because they didn't treat each other with the requisite respect and honor. On the 33rd day, they stopped dying, which is one reason for the celebration, but also it was the Yortzeit. Today is the Yortzeit of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was the creator and founder of the Kabbalah. He's the one who wrote the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic work, mystical ideas, and the Torah. And he said that that this is a Hilula, a day of tremendous celebration, and people should come up to his cave. And the numbers have grown over the years. And last year, of course, because of COVID, nobody was allowed to be there. I don't know the details whether they were meant to be there or not. I don't think it's relevant at this stage. Of course, there are always lessons to learn, but we have to know when it is appropriate for us to start having a witch hunt and when it is appropriate to do soul searching. And as things stand, the fact is that they did gather. 100,000 were in Meron. Usually it's almost 250,000. So the numbers were down from previous years. There were police, there were ambulances, there was organization, but tragically, apparently there was a stampede or panic that was created, and people started to fall on each other, and they were crushed. And there was this crush, and many people have died. Many people, we still don't know what happened to them. The phone lines went down immediately afterwards, and parents have been separated from their children. They can't reach them. They don't know. They're calling hospitals. They're calling friends. They simply cannot find them. The panic, the ordeal that families are going through, even those that haven't been informed of the loss, is unthinkable. I woke up this morning, I have to tell you, I know I'm amongst friends, and my son Yosef is in Israel, and I know that in previous years he had gone to Meron, gone with 250,000 other people, and it was an incredible spectacle and celebration and experience, and exceptionally inspirational. People from all backgrounds, stripes, and colors come together for joyous celebrations about being Jewish and some of the great parts of life. And thank God, we had to check, but he wasn't there. He actually knows somebody who broke their leg, who was there, a friend of his. But we are talking about 44 families. I think it's mainly fathers, and they've now become orphans, these kids. It is simply mind-numbing. It is unthinkable. And we know just a few weeks ago that when it came to Aaron, who was the high priest, we know that in his two of his sons, Nadav and Abihu, the brightest, the best, those that were expected to take over the leadership from Moshe and from Aaron, they transgressed and they received divine retribution and they died on the spot. And it is telling, and we always refer back to such instances. It is telling the response of Aaron. What's the response of Aaron after a tremendous catastrophe and tragedy? And the answer is Vayidom Aaron. Aaron was silent. He didn't say a word. That doesn't mean that he didn't feel the pain. That doesn't mean that Aaron wasn't bereft of his two sons. But some of the things that we say in the heat of the moment may not be appropriate. We have to go through psychologically a process. We have to process. We have to go through, acknowledge the scale of the tragedy, any tragedy. And then we have to go through a process of acknowledging it, recognizing it, understanding it, appreciating it, and then mourning the loss and going through the 5 stages of bereavement. So all these things, Aaron, who is very much the role model in how we deal with tragedy, demonstrated through his personal example and conduct. And therefore, now is not a time, and I find it exceptionally, exceptionally painful when in certain corners of the media in Israel, there has already started a witch hunt, and already I have heard and seen and read about some people that are taking pot shots at the time of grief at the religious community about how they are responsible and criticizing them. This is a time for the community, for Israel, for the Jewish people to come together, to stand shoulder to shoulder, not to say a word, to send letters, to send support, to send financial aid, to write, to take an interest, to pray, to beseech the Almighty that these young kids are found, and that there's not more tragedy that we don't know about, that those that are on life support machines, those that are in the hospitals, that have been evacuated, that were flown by helicopter, that they pull through. That is what today is all about. That is what we should all be doing. There was a young man in Shul this morning. I was so impressed. He came over to me after davening, and of course, many of us are unshaven, unkempt, because we haven't been able to have a haircut for 4 weeks as part of the Omer process. And he said to me, am I allowed to have a haircut? Am I allowed to listen to music? It's a national tragedy. And of course, I told him, that it was permissible. It wasn't, we're not mourners. We're not the immediate mourners. But nonetheless, to have that sensitivity, to have that awareness, that consideration that life has to stop, that you can't carry on. And certainly you can't start criticizing. And then there's the other side of the coin, the other people that think they are they think they're God, they think they're the omnipresent, and that they have all the answers, and that they decide, be it rabbis or lay leaders or thinkers or writers, to write articles and explain to everyone they know why this happened. All of a sudden they're playing God. It's amazing that Aaron, in the aftermath of his sons dying, when clearly he and Moses knew what had happened. They knew what had gone wrong. They didn't say a word. They didn't explain it. They didn't say anything. They just stayed with the moment and were able to process it and to mourn and to feel for each other. That is what we should be doing. And that is what we should encourage others to do at this time. So these are just a few initial thoughts. The response of Soloveitchik always says, whenever there is any tragedy, is quite simply, we don't ask the whys, but it's about the what. What can we do? What should be our response? How can we learn? How can we improve? How can we help? It's not about us asking the whys. The whys, trust me, this is something that will trouble me for many, many days, weeks, and probably months. People that were there celebrating spirituality, that had gone there purely for the right motives, and yet at the moment of intense joy and celebrating being Jewish, their lives were snuffed out in a terrible tragedy. It's a catastrophe. It's a personal tragedy. We should all feel it, even if we don't know anyone that's there. Those are the thoughts that initially come to mind. I hope you don't mind me sharing. I apologize that I'm not as upbeat and as jovial as I usually am, but obviously it's hit me hard. Let's say a prayer. Sorry, let's just say a prayer, and then we'll say a refuah shalema prayer, which is exceptionally relevant. And it's good that we are all coming together in numbers today to reflect and to give each other strength and to feel the pain of those in Israel. Memorial prayer. We'll have in mind, I don't have the list for our community. That was read out earlier, but we will say a memorial prayer for those that have tragically lost their lives and their loved ones have been informed. And now, Erev Shabbos in Israel, across Israel, in particular amongst the Toldos Aaron, the Hasidic sect, which the majority which were stricken, there are levayas, funerals taking place, kriya is being cut, and families are burying their dead. Adon olamim zacho es nishmois kol neshamas memeron shalchu lelamam began eden teimenu chosam lachim balarachamim yasirein b'seisa kanafam olamim v'yitzah b'sachayim stishmasam Adonai inachlasam v'yanuchu b'shlom amishkavam v'namar Amen. Now, refuah shalema prayer, please have in mind that all those that have filled the hospitals across Israel should have a refuah shalema. Initially, there was already 150 that had to be evacuated that are injured. Let us hope that that number of those seriously injured comes down and people recover speedily. Misha berach Avosenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo hu yivarech rape es hacholim bavo she'anu mispalim bavoram b'ezchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachum aleichem lachem alafosam yishlach lehem refuah sh'nashmayim lechol avreim basoch shachar Yisrael refuas hanefesh refuas haguf hashabak zman kariv v'nomar amen. Wish all of those injured that they should have a speedy and a full recovery. All of those unwell in our community around the world with COVID and other illnesses, we wish them a speedy and a full recovery. And as we go into Shabbos, please God, the Almighty should give a consolation to all those that need it and a refuah shlema speedily in our days. Wishing everyone well. Shabbat shalom. Take care.